Welcome or welcome back to Golem Telly. I am your host, the magical Mr. E. Now, we're already halfway through October, and you know what that means, don't you? It means we're in Halloween season, and that means witches and goblins and ghosts and vampires and pumpkins and, well, you get the idea. So I'm sure you'll agree that what we need to be doing tonight and for the next few shows is celebrating the season the best way we can, making the most of it, and doing some spooky stuff. And have I got something spooky for you tonight? That's right, folks. Here in my hands I have a copy of Computer and Video Games magazine from 1986. And on the front cover you can see the witch from Cauldron 2, The Pumpkin Strikes Back. But that's not all this issue has to offer in terms of Halloween-y type thrills. Oh no, there's much more. So, let's head over to camera 2. Let's stick this under the retroscope. Let's zoom in and let's see what else lurks within. So here we are, gazing at the front cover of the June 1986 issue of Computer and Video Games magazine. Now the funny thing about this issue is that it's cover dated June 1986, which means it would have been in newsagents probably around about the first week of June, maybe even by the end of May. Either way, you couldn't get much further away from Halloween if you tried. But that doesn't matter, we can celebrate spooky things whenever we feel like it, right? And it's a fantastic front cover, look at those colours. There's the witch from Cauldron 2 with a big chin and a big schnoz. She's got the pumpkin in her hands and she's about to throw him into the cauldron and make some soup. And as you can see, top right, there's an opportunity to win a Cauldron 2 trophy inside this issue. We'll have to check that out. The magazine only cost 98 pence back in the day. That's good value, especially when you consider that this issue comes with a free 8-page arcade special and an interview with Rob Hubbard. Okay, let's get inside this issue and see what it's all about. So this issue kicks off with a double-page spread advertisement for Elite Software. And this month they're trying to flog the two arcade conversions, Bombjack and Paperboy, which, as you can see, came out for pretty much every format under the sun. Now, these conversions varied in quality. I played the Commodore 64 versions of both, and I was happy with them. Bombjack was my favourite, Paperboy was a little bit too tricky, and I didn't really like the way it looked on the Commodore 64, but it was a good game. Okay, let's check out this month's contents. There's Rob Hubbard. What a cool dude. Plenty of features this month, as you can see. The Cauldron competition is coming up on page 42. What else have we got? The top 30 charts, a player's guide to Nemesis, Rob Hubbard interview on page 72, looking forward to that. Oh, the Bug Hunters, and the most exciting game reviews this issue, Cauldron 2, which gets Game of the Month, and there are C+VG hits for Quasitron, Heavy on the Magic, Karate Combat, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Green Beret, what a game, and Alien Highway. And let's see who the main contributors were at this point in C+VG's history. You had Tim Metcalf as editor, Keith Campbell contributing to the adventure section. Who else do we recognise? Oh, there's Claire Edgley reporting on the arcades. That Cauldron 2 trophy that was mentioned on the front cover, it mentions it here. It says, last but by no means least, there's our cover feature competition. Win the amazing Cauldron 2 Golden Pumpkin Trophy. I want one of those. I bet it would look amazing on anyone's mantelpiece. Let's find out. There's an ad for NatWest. The Action Bank. NatWest Online. Well, it wasn't really online, was it? Not in 1986. A glimpse into the future. And there's the ubiquitous credit card calculator. And if you're wondering where to get one of those, check out my last video about the Argos catalogue from 1984. They got a whole bunch of them in there. Okay, what's happening in the news this month? Who Dares Wins 2, the Commando clone from Alligator, is now available on the Spectrum at £7.95p. And it's lost none of the action-packed thrills of the 64 and Amstrad versions, and some gamesters still rate it as better than Elite's Commando. That's a bold claim. It was good, but I still preferred Commando. It's that Rob Hubbard music, you see, that's what makes all the difference. A couple of new games coming from Microgen. You've got Equinox on the way, and Stainless Steel. And here's something Halloween-y. CRL's arcade adventure based on Richard O'Brien's Rocky Horror Show will soon be available for the Commodore 128. That's right, there was an enhanced Commodore 128 version, wasn't there? This one promises to be the most exciting to date, and it's going to utilise the extra memory available, offering high-definition graphics, brand new sprites, new animation, even more locations, and new gameplay features. I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I never saw the original stage show, but the movie has to be watched every October, without fail. Okay, and before we move on from the news section, just in case you felt starved of pictures of our cheeky cockney sex kitten Samantha Fox, here's another one. Happy now? This is from Martech's now infamous strip poker game, the 64 version. Is that just a gratuitous picture of Sam Fox and her armpits, for no other reason than to titillate readers before moving on to page 10? I think it might be. Shame on you, C+VG, you should aim higher. Oh, there is some more news. We're not quite done with the news yet, but take a look over here first. There's a System 3 ad for Twister and International Karate. Incidentally, sorry about the mark on my hand there. I did that on the freezer door earlier on when I was trying to get some frozen chips out. It really hurt at the time, but I'm okay now. So not much else that's particularly exciting in the news as far as I can see, so let's move straight on to... oh, more news. Okay, fine. There's a lot of news, isn't there? Anything worthwhile here? Ooh, what's this? Big Trouble in Little Shining. I think they mean Big Trouble in Little China. Well, obviously that's what they mean. But it's being directed by John Carpenter of Halloween and The Thing fame and is set in San Francisco. It concerns a Chinese godfather who has the unnerving habit of turning into a big floating eye and kidnapping blondes. Well, that's quite timely, isn't it? Because I was watching Big Trouble in Little China earlier this evening. I love that movie. Oh, and of course, Activision did games based on both Big Trouble in Little China and Howard the Duck. Neither of them were very good. It says here that Howard the Duck is going to be based on the Marvel comic character who has become a cult hero. The story follows his efforts to come to grips with the human race. I remember watching Howard the Duck in the cinema in Edgware one afternoon. I quite enjoyed it, but I've since come to learn that it wasn't very good, and I should never have enjoyed it. I didn't have any problem with Howard the Duck and a human being having a snog. It's fine by me. An ad for the graphic adventure creator, something I wish I'd done more with. I always wanted to write my own text adventure with graphics, but I still haven't done it. I will one day. Okay, into this month's reviews then. And the game of the month, as we know already, is Cauldron 2, The Pumpkin Strikes Back. It's quite hard to read that, isn't it? Sort of pink lettering on a red background. Definitely one of Palace Software's finest, this one. Great graphics, sensational sound and gameplay, which at times borders on being frustrating, but nevertheless addictive. Pumpkin is a winner. They're calling it Pumpkin for short, because Cauldron 2, The Pumpkin Strikes Back, is too unwieldy to say over and over again. I get it. And as you can see, this is the Commodore 64 version that's being reviewed. Looks great, doesn't it? Look at those bas-relief graphics. And the interesting thing about this game, of course, is that it turned the tables from the previous game. In the original Cauldron, you played the witch, but in this one, you play the pumpkin, and the witch is the baddie. And there, because that cover was so good, they've reversed it and printed it twice more in order to decorate this review. Why not? Conversions are on the way for the Spectrum and the Amstrad, so most people will eventually be able to enjoy this delightful game. Don't delay. Buy it today. Well, seeing as the graphics get a 10, the sound a 9, and value 9, and playability 10, I think I will. And here you have a couple of Spectrum games getting the C+VG Hit Award. Not quite Game of the Month, but they can't all be Game of the Month. Quasitron getting a 10 out of 10 for playability, and Alien Highway getting a 9 out of 10 for playability. And that's what counts, isn't it? Let's not get hung up on graphics and sound, and even value. What matters is playability. So just in case it needs clarifying, the Game of the Month is C+VG's highest honour, granted to the game which, in our honest opinion, is the most playable, original and exciting game released during the month. We look for all the key points listed below, but also that extra added ingredient which makes the game stand head and shoulders above the best of the rest. And those qualities are graphics. Is the game graphically great, or do the graphics great? Sound. Is it loud and proud, or does it sound like you got your head stuck in a bucket of mud? Value. Should you beg, borrow, or even steal the cash? No, don't steal it. to get your hands on the game and be the envy of your friends, or will it be better to wait until the game appears in the bargain bin? And playability, will you be dragged screaming from the joystick after 24 hours continuous play, or will the mere sight of the loading screen send you running to switch off the machine? And a C+VG hit is a symbol which is the magazine's way of telling you a game is the business. And there's an ad for Commodore User. I liked Commodore User. It wasn't quite as flamboyant as Zap 64, and of course it couldn't compete with the reviewing team and the amazing Oliver Frey artwork, but it was still a great magazine. And this is an amazing looking game, heavy on the magic. It never came out for the Commodore as far as I'm aware, even though it says that it was available for the C64 in this review, but I certainly never remember seeing it for the Commodore 64. Which is a shame, because look at those scores. A C+VG hit with graphics at 9 and sound at 9, but value at 10 and playability at 10. That's bordering Game of the Month territory. Big sprites. That's what it was all about, wasn't it, back in the day? The bigger the better. And this game is being relegated to the corner here, Bounces, but it was a really interesting title. A sort of a one-on-one dueling game with characters dressed up as knights in shining armour, but set in the future. And here's Fairlight, a fabulous isometric 3D arcade adventure. And here we can see the Amstrad and C64 versions getting their reviews and doing pretty well. All in all, Fairlight is as pretty as a picture on both machines. Now here's a game that definitely deserved a C+VG hit. Green Beret. And it was brilliant on both the Spectrum and the Commodore 64. I know because I played both versions. The Spectrum version on my cousin Steve's computer and the Commodore 64 on my own. And mine was better than his because mine had that amazing Martin Galway music while the game was loading. And how could I describe that music while it was loading? I think I'd call it a dirge. Tough as old boots though, this game. You had to be really, really brilliant at games and rock hard and dedicated in order to get anywhere. And I was all those things. I might not be all those things now, but in my prime, yeah, that was me. Now that's what you'd call a notorious game. World Cup Carnival by US Gold. I mean, it looks great, doesn't it? Fantastic ad, loads of colour, really exciting. The World Cup in Mexico just around the corner, but all they did was take an old football game, tart it up, bundle a load of tat with it in a big box and try to sell it to you for £9.95p. Now there's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I thought I remember seeing that it got a C+VG hit earlier, but maybe it didn't. Starquake did though. And look at these scores. I mean, that scored higher overall than Cauldron 2, but I guess Cauldron 2 had that magical something to elevate it above the others. Maybe it's because it's just a conversion of a Spectrum game. Did it come out on the Spectrum first? I mean, they've relegated the game to just a few column inches, haven't they? But surely it deserved more. Oh yeah, here we go. Stephen Crow, winner of the C+VG Golden Joystick Award for Best Programmer of the Year, has converted his Spectrum classic Starquake for the 64. And it's definitely been worth waiting for. Okay, but they could have at least included a screenshot. Computer Hits Volume 2. Now these Bo Jolly compilations were fantastic value for money. This one has Frenzy, Smash and Grab, Jet Powered Jack, Circus, Video's Revenge, Star Striker, Jet Boot Jack, Web War, Kissin' Cousins, and The Evil Dead. What a selection of games for £9.95. No wonder it got a 10 for value. There's a game from Ultimate, Cyberrun. But it's not one of the ones that came in those big boxes that everyone raved about. It was what you might call a post-peak Ultimate release, and it was alright, but it was no Saberwolf. Now Way of the Tiger. This was a game I absolutely loved, and I think it was kind of underrated actually. I had the Commodore 64 version, and it definitely warranted that C+VG hit. The graphics were really good. The 4 different events, I think it was 4 different events, or was it 3? I can't remember. Either way, you had 3 or 4 different disciplines to master. It was a multi-load, I remember that much. I also like the fact that it spawned a sequel, Avenger, which was completely different in as much as it was a kind of a Gauntlet clone. But because I absolutely loved Gauntlet and games like Druid, I was thrilled to get hold of Avenger when it came out, and I think the two of them made a really good duology. And there's a lovely full-page ad for Cauldron 2, The Pumpkin Strikes Back. Those screenshots are a little bit murky. not really doing it justice. If you go down to the woods today, you're sure of a swift demise. Nice. Palace Software. That's one of the best logos in computer game history. Shame you can't see it very well. Anyway. So here we have a showdown between Karate Combat and Yi Kung Fu. Interestingly, Karate Combat comes out on top with a 10 for playability, but the classic arcade conversion, Yi Kung Fu, only got an 8. Then again, looking more closely at the review, I can see that these are both BBC Micro releases, and that does not look very good. Looks nothing like the Commodore 64 version. What's this one over here? The Sorcerer? I don't remember The Sorcerer. From Bug Bite. Oh, it's a £2.99 budget title. Looks good for a cheapo game, doesn't it? Psy Combat. It was all karate games, wasn't it, back in the day? For a while. Oh, here we go, look. Yet another martial arts game, and probably one of the best for the Spectrum yet. This one centres on the ancient art of Psy Karate. So what's that then? Okay, well, it involves the use of a special Psy weapon. Alright, I'm still none the wiser. Basically, this is a big stick. Ah, now I get it. With which you bash your opponent. And for good measure, you can also kick him. Okay, I'm in. Ah, Bounder. That was brilliant, wasn't it? Perhaps a little bit overrated. I think Zap64 gave it, what was it, 97% or 98%? It got a gold medal award anyway. Good value though. You got Metabolis, or is it Metabolis, on the other side of the tape. So, can't really argue with that for £9.95. Oh look, there's the 97% from Zap64. And what did Gary Penn say? He said it was the most compulsive game I've ever played. If you don't buy it, you'll never know what you've missed. Well, that's logical. What's this one? RMS Titanic from Electric Dreams. I don't think people were as bonkers about the Titanic in 1986 as they would be when James Cameron released his movie in, what was it, 1997? Anyway, a sleeper C+VG hit. This picture of the Titanic just sinking. Not very subtle, but anyway. Alter Ego. Now, I'm sure this one came out earlier than the summer of 1986. Oh well. No, it's one of these where the graphics and sound defy traditional ratings. I think they could have given it a mark for graphics. I mean, you know, these are nicely designed icons. The screen is appealing to the eye. I would have given it 7 out of 10. Now, hold on a second. Ollo. Didn't Ollo get one of the lowest scores of all time from Zap64? Something ridiculous, like 2%. I'll have to look that one up later. It was probably a bit harsh. Savage Pond, I had that game for my Acorn Electron. I loved it. And there's Equinox, getting its C+VG hit with a 10 out of 10 for playability. It was a good month for games, wasn't it? Ah, now the Sci-5 Trading Company, I loved this one. Really atmospheric, hard to play. I was never very good at it, but I think the music was incredible. Very, very moody, and it reflected what was going on at different times in the game. Really good stuff. My favourite sort of space trading combat game. And there's V. You can barely see it. Look, it's a green V on this yellow background. Again, another one in which I didn't really know what I was doing, but it looked good. And I loved V, the TV series. Do you remember? Do you remember the episode where the twins were born? The alien baby. There's another review for 10 Computer Hits Volume 2, this time for the Amstrad. What did they get? A different selection of games. 3D Star Strike, Super Pipeline 2, Technician Ted, Android 2, Mutant Monty, Codename Matt, Moon Buggy, World Cup, Gauntlet, that's not the Atari Gauntlet, and last but not least, Fantasia Diamond from Hewson. Ah, I loved this game, Night Games, from English Software. I had it for the Commodore 64. Was it available on other machines? Yeah, oh there, the Amstrad. A glorious feast of medieval combat. Really, it was just 2 events dressed up as 8. 6 of them were pretty much the same. You just had to whack the hell out of your opponent until he fell down. And the other 2 events were just crosshair shooting games, the crossbow and archery. But it looked fantastic, it had great music, and all in all, it was a lot of fun. And that's what counts. And there's a review for Spin Dizzy. I remember having the Commodore 64 version of this, but I think it originally came out on the Amstrad, and everyone raved about it. Zap64 gave it a really high score. I think they gave it a gold medal. Here it's not doing quite as well. 8, 6, 7 and 9. They're a bit generous on the sound, to be honest with you, because there was barely any sound in it. Anyway, brilliant game. Bit fiddly, A real test of coordination and patience. What's Mrs. Thatcher doing with a Cheetah 125 joystick? Oh, she's nuking somewhere. Now here's this competition we've been hearing so much about, but hang on a minute. Where's this golden pumpkin? I want to see what I might be winning. Okay, we'll have to use our imagination. Right here and now, we're offering you the chance to win a very special Cauldron 2 prize. This is an amazing thing. It comes in the shape of a golden pumpkin mounted on a nicely polished wooden base with a plaque, which could soon be engraved with your name if you're our overall winner. Probably a bit late to enter now. Some decent games there from Mirrorsoft. I enjoyed Biggles, and the movie actually. Rebel Planet, there's a fighting fantasy adaptation. There were a few of those, weren't there? Now, Phantom of the Asteroids, that was a brilliant game. I think it might have been Phantom of the Asteroid. Sorry if I'm being a bit pedantic, but you know, it's good to get these things right, isn't it? You control a spaceman through the cavernous asteroid, zapping the phantoms who attack you, and avoiding the 3 types of force wall which bar your way. A neat and cheap treat. Eggs of Death. What was that for? Oh, the Enterprise. Wow. There weren't many games released for the Enterprise. That was a computer I really wanted, mainly because it looked so cool. It had a dark grey keyboard and red, green and blue buttons as I recall, but most excitingly of all, it had a little joystick built into the keyboard. Fabulous. Right, the software chart. What was topping the charts? Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Look, Super Bowl was the #1 game that month. Uridium still doing well for the Commodore 64. Zap Sizzlers, another really good compilation, but look, naughty C+VG, or did they do that on purpose, spell Zap incorrectly? Everyone knows, it's ZAP! Exclamation mark. Now here's the Arcade Action Special. A games player's guide to beating Nemesis and a preview of Elite's latest conversion, Ghosts and Goblins. Ghosts and Goblins really was fantastic. I think it got a gold medal award from Zap 64 if I remember correctly. Let's see, Ikari Warriors. I was fascinated by this one, but I think I only ever played it once or twice in the arcades. Good looking game, and of course being a Rambo nut, couldn't fail to get excited about that one. Weren't there 2 conversions for the Commodore 64? One British one and one American one. And isn't one good and one terrible? Something I'll have to check out later. That's the latest Quest Probe adventure. I remember playing Spider-Man and the Hulk most of all, and I really loved them, especially the Hulk, which was one of the first games I ever played on the Commodore 64 at my friend Darren's house. So there's that Nemesis player's guide. I beat Nemesis on the Commodore 64 all the way through, no cheating, just pure brilliance. I don't know if I could do it again. Maybe I should try. Rip-off or spin-off? Have you ever wondered where the ideas for computer games come from? It would be hard to miss the fact that a great deal of computer software is based on arcade games. C+VG's Arcade Spy, Claire Edgley, reports. So would you say that The Way of the Exploding Fist is a rip-off of Karate Champ? I mean, kind of, but Fist was way better than Karate Champ. Daly's Super Test, was that a rip-off of Track and Field? Yeah, but who cares? Ghosts and Goblins. And even though this is the centre spread and it's right in the middle of the arcade section, we can see that these are the Commodore 64 screens. So this is definitely an article about the conversion rather than the arcade original. Heading your way is a right night fright. Ghosts and Goblins, the latest arcade conversion from Elite. And to help you survive these blood-chilling knights of armour, those gallant gentlemen of Elite have provided us with a preview of the game and a few hints as to what to expect in later levels. Let's see. Level 3. The undead rise from the ground again to hinder the knight's progress. Evil devils are also encountered, and a dragon guards the way to the next level. Now here's an ad for They Sold a Million Too, another amazing compilation. If I remember correctly, there was an ad for the first They Sold a Million compilation in the November 1985 issue of Zap 64, which I looked at on Golem Telly a couple of weeks ago. Check it out. Have a look at some of my other videos, and subscribe to Golem Telly. You won't regret it. Here's a type-in listing for a game called Bouncer for the BBC Micro by Paul Madison. I wonder if it's any good. Can you write games? Superior Software would like to know. Here's a map for Get Dexter, which had a different title in its native France, I believe, and I think there it is, but I can't quite make out what it says. Now this is a brilliant trio of games from Accolade. If you played all three back in the day, you were a very lucky gamer. My favourite was Law of the West. And there's a Law of the West Easter egg in my first book, the 8-bit book, 1981 to 1990X. If you've got a copy, have a look and see if you can spot it. There's a roundup of all the football games that are available. Blimey, there's loads. And there's Rob Hubbard, the legend, the master. Rarely rising before midday, C+VG jet-setter Jim Douglas broke the habits of a lifetime and headed for parts unknown, Newcastle. Why? To discover the secrets of a man, a micro, and his music. And here's the Rob Hubbard file, everything you need to know about Rob Hubbard. Favourite food, steak and kidney pie, or lasagna, but only a decent one. Rob Hubbard will not accept a substandard lasagna. Favourite drink, coffee. Most disliked TV show, anything with Terry Wogan in. That's a bit harsh. I bet he regrets saying that now. Favourite TV show, Faulty Towers. Favourite music, Chick Corea. Favourite movie, Neverending Story. It was quite good. High praise indeed. Countries visited. These are interesting questions, aren't they? Countries visited: Belgium, Austria, Italy, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Jersey. Pet hate, baseless, my computer is better than yours debates. Quite right too. What a waste of time. Although the Commodore 64 was the best. What's this? Sing Along a Rambo? A C+VG competition. Ever wish that you could get all your favourite computer game tunes on one tape? Of course you have. And now you can. So this is a special audio tape called Data Hits, complete with special disco mixes of tunes like Rambo, Ghostbusters, Crazy Comets, and the theme from Chariots of Fire. Wow, I wonder how many of those they made. So here's an ad for some games from Americana Software. Now that was a Mastertronic label, but they had some amazing games. Slamball in particular was a superb pinball simulation. Breakdance was a classic game from the early years of the Commodore 64. Good stuff. Only $2.99. That's crazy. Ideas Central. Now this was the tips section in computer and video games. Here's something for VIC-20 owners who weren't really getting much of a look in by 1986. The following routine, running on the unexpanded VIC-20, will allow players of Duck Shoot to obtain infinite bullets. There's a survey and the classified ads section at the back. Adventure News. This was the Keith Campbell section, wasn't it? So Keith Campbell's job is to collect and collate all the data relevant to adventure games and dispense words of wisdom to people with problems. That's a nice touch, isn't it? Printing the adventure clues upside down so they didn't inadvertently give anything away. Some adventure game reviews here. Mary Celeste, The Terrors of Trantos. What do they give that? Vocabulary 6, Atmosphere 8, and Personal 7. And Project Theseus, that got a 10. A few more adventure game reviews. What's this one? Perry Mason, The Case of the Mandarin Murder. I never heard of it. Keith Campbell liked it though, look at that. 10 for Atmosphere. And Ultima 4, Quest of Avatar. He didn't think very much of it, but those games are worth a fortune now, aren't they? The Ultima games. There's a competition for the Very Big Cave Adventure from CRL. And I remember CRL did quite a few adventure games and they were usually quite funny, weren't they? There was Board of the Rings and The Boggit, Board 2. Can you remember any others? Let me know in the comments section. So we're very close to the end of this issue now and we're finishing up with a few pages of The Bug Hunters. I love comic strips at the back of computer game magazines. Zap64 had The Terminal Man and C+VG had The Bug Hunters. That's great artwork. That would not look out of place in 2000 AD. You folks are in big trouble. To be continued. Only 3 pages, but really good stuff. And right towards the end of this issue, we've got the Map of Ocean's Batman, or the Bat Map, if you will. That's a lot of screens squeezed onto those 2 pages. I think there's more on the next page as well. Yep, there we are. Not the easiest map to read, but still worth having. Just need to get your magnifying glass out and you'll be fine. A few hints and tips as well to go along with the map. No excuses for not completing the game now. Appropriately enough, we're finishing with an ad for Batman. It's a great looking ad, isn't it? I wonder who did that artwork. Oh, Bob Wakelin, of course. I wonder if he did any actual artwork for the Batman comics. I have to look that one up. Either way, he was a brilliant artist. Another legend gone too soon. What's on the back cover? Not the most exciting way to end, I know, maybe for some people. Silent service. Do you like submarine simulators? If you do, then that's perfect for you. And that's it. Computer and Video Games Magazine, June 1986. The Halloween edition. Not really, but it could have been. Right, it's late. Let's head back to camera one and call it a night. I hope you enjoyed that flick through the pages of the June 1986 issue of Computer and Video Games Magazine. I certainly did. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could like and share this video, I would be eternally grateful. And if you could possibly subscribe to Golem Telly if you haven't done so already, I would owe you big time. And don't forget, hit the notifications bell so you don't miss my next show, which is coming up in around 3 or 4 days' time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Evening shadows deep.